Hello guys, welcome to part 4 of What If Naruto Was the Dead Man Walking. I hope you will like this video. Let's begin.
Naruto had a scowl on his face as he looked down into the clearing from where he was crouched on a tree branch, with Clementine and Victor being crouched on the other larger branches that were dotted around the outskirts of the clearing. Things had not been going the way Naruto had hoped. They had quickly managed to catch up to Kakashi and his team, having run over the stretch of water between the land of fire and the land of wave. They hadn't even needed to wait to use Kakashi and the bridge builder Tazuna as bait. As by the time they caught up with them, Kakashi and Zabuza were already locked in combat. With Zabuza's apprentice hovering around waiting to leap in and Kakashi's team all huddled around the bridge builder in a defensive formation. It had been at this point that things had started going wrong. Naruto had told Kakashi to leave, giving him a way out of here with his bridge builder and team. This would leave just Zabuza and Haku alone in the clearing, with any chance of escape being cut off by Naruto and his team. But it was not to be. Kakashi had decided on being stubborn, which had led to a stalemate as Kakashi demanded they reveal themselves before he would trust them and Naruto telling him to leave or there would be consequences. Minato, Sakura, Sasuke, take Tazuna back a bit, I need him out of the way, Kakashi said as he gestured for his team to slowly back away. Clearly the man had recognized that they were in a standoff, and was hoping to get his team and client out of the way before anything happened. Tazuna nodded nervously at that, even as the surrounding genins began to slowly back away. Or at least Sakura and a number of Mito's clones did, with the original and Sasuke saying behind. We'll back you up, sensei, Mito said, her voice holding an edge of stubbornness. Naruto narrowed his eyes at this. This was the first time he had seen his sister in 3 years. She had changed, she was older now, more mature, gone was the remnants of baby fat that had still clung onto her. Now she was quite light, she still had the same colorings as their mother, with long waist-length red hair tied back in a ponytail and sharp violet eyes. Naruto felt a slight weight in his heart as he looked at the resolve in her eyes. He hadn't realized how much he had missed his overbearing sisters. No, the mission is to protect the bridge builder and that is what you must do, Kakashi replied harshly as he kept an eye out. His vision becoming clearer as Zabuza stopped using his hidden mist jutsu. It seemed the master of the silent kill was not that comfortable with the mist when he was the prey. You should go with them, Kakashi. There is no need for you and your team to get mixed up in this. Naruto tried one last time, knowing that the stalemate was coming to an end. Without the mist covering them, Naruto knew the highly trained eyes of Kakashi and Zabuza would find them. Not until I know you won't attack us from behind, Kakashi responded, his Sharingan eye spinning as the mist became thinner and thinner. The man was being overcautious now, undecided over whether or not Naruto and his team were enemies. They might not attack you in the back, Kakashi, but know that I will the moment you and your little team turn to leave, Zabuza said as he swung his sword slightly. Naruto frowned at that. Zabuza was trying to stop Kakashi from leaving as he knew he would stand more of a chance in a three-sided fight than he would if he were to go one-on-one with a trained Kirigakure Hunter-nin team. The very slight creaking of wood was all the warning Naruto got as Clementine, it seemed, got tired of waiting. In a blur, the masked girl hit the floor before rushing Zabuza from behind, her twin blades in hand. Letting out a sigh, Naruto unsealed his axe before making eye contact with the now visible Victor on the other side of the clearing. As one, they leapt into the mist-free clearing, both of them aiming to engage with Zabuza. Seeing this, Kakashi instinctively moved forward, Mito and Sasuke following behind, despite having been told to get back. Zabuza swung his sword around as he felt someone attacking him from behind, whilst Haku leapt away from Zabuza looking to intercept Victor. With the clash of blades, Clementine and Zabuza engaged in combat. The both of them fighting in blurs as Clementine's superior speed, strength and reflexes battled against Zabuza's superior skill and experience. The two of them were soon in a stalemate, as Zabuza used his wide blade to fend off Clementine's stilettos, whilst Clementine found herself having to constantly dodge and weave around his heavy counterattacks. Letting out a snarl, Clementine used her armored greaves on her right leg to knock Zabuza's blade away from him, before she slammed her blade into his chest. Zabuza's body dissolved into water as she made contact. With Clementine having to dodge wide-eyed as Zabuza's blade the Kobakirabocho slammed into where she had just been standing. With Victor? Victor grunted slightly as he once again had to move from his position. His opponent, the fake hunter Nin, Haku, was an annoying one. She seemed to have an endless supply of senbon, thin metal needles, to throw at him, and the worst thing was she was very accurate. Already he had half a dozen of the metal needles dug into his body. Luckily though, he had been able to dodge them well enough so that they had not hit anything important or vital. Still though, they were very annoying all the same. Lashing his hands out, Victor pumped chakra into the wire shooting contraptions he had on both of his wrists. Using his chakra to both release and guide the thin wires as he swung his hand around. The chakra-infused wires acting like a whip, as they sliced through anything they touched, ripping apart the nearby trees and the ground at his feet. Unfortunately though, they had not hit the brat, who thanks to her incredible speed was able to maneuver around all of Victor's attacks so far. Victor scowled at this, his maniacal smile dropping as he thought about how much easier this would have been if he had had time to cover the area in his traps. Flicking his wrist, Victor retracted his wires, pulling them back into his intricate gauntlets. The fake hunter Nin stopped as she saw that, making sure to keep her distance but still obviously curious about what Victor was up to. "Have you decided to give up?" Haku asked calmly as she eyed Victor. "Give up?" Victor replied, a sinister grin on his face. "Now why would I do a thing like that?" As he said those words, both of his hands soon became enshrouded in blue chakra. Lunging forward far faster than before, Victor almost took Haku by surprise. As he stopped fighting her using a mid-range fighting style and instead began attempting to engage her in hand-to-hand combat. But once again Haku's speed prevailed, as did her knowledge of the shinobi arts, as she instantly realized how dangerous fighting her opponent up close would be. "Chakra scalpels," Haku said as she looked at Victor's glowing hands, a look of concern on her face. Chakra scalpels were a skill medic Nins learnt, although it had more uses than just in medicine, as it was also often used in combat by medic Nins to deadly effect. They were meant to be used for making highly accurate incisions in surgeries, but they had an unusual quirk: chakra scalpels can make cuts inside the body without harming the skin. Suffice to say, when used correctly, this technique could be highly deadly. "So tell me, little one, do you give up?" Victor replied sinisterly as he crouched low to the ground, consciously aware of what his other teammates were doing as he did so. "With Naruto." Glancing over, Naruto took note of how Clementine had engaged Zabuza and Victor had taken on Haku. Things were not too bad at the moment. Clementine was a match for Zabuza, Naruto was confident enough in that, and Victor could also take out Zabuza's apprentice. But even so, he was wanting to help them out, first by joining Victor in killing Zabuza's apprentice, before joining Clementine in totally overwhelming Zabuza. But first he had to get rid of Kakashi and his team. Which was why, instead of attack the two enemy shinobi, he instead appeared in front of Kakashi. "Take your bridge builder and walk away now," Naruto said calmly, his eyes flickering to Mito before going back to Kakashi. "I recognize you," was Kakashi's response. This made Naruto's eyes widen even as his grip on his axe tightened. "You are Grim, aren't you?" Kakashi replied, his own eyes narrowing as he raised his kunai. "Which would make your companions the monster and the cannibal, all three of which are Hunter Nin and A-rank shinobi. It is also listed in the bingo books that you are presumed to be from Kirigakure, though that has never been substantiated." Naruto calmed down as he heard that those were the names that had been given to Naruto and his team in the bingo books. This meant that Kakashi didn't know who he truly was. Bingo books were an annoying tool. A book was created by each shinobi village listing enemy shinobi who had bounties from their village. The information in them though was based on that village-owned spy network, something that each village guarded jealousy. "Well, if we were from Kiri then, since Zabuza is a missing Nin, formerly of Kirigakure. Killing him would be our business, so you will move on," Naruto replied in a harsh tone as he noticed the glare the young uchiha gave him and the wide-eyed look his sister gave him. And if we weren't, he is still a missing nin, and we would be totally within our rights to take the bounty on his head. Yet you are also wanted in Konoha's bingo book, with a price of 20,000 on your head. Kakashi replied, showing no signs of hostility. Why are they called that, sensei? Mito questioned from where she was stood. The reason is simple, each of them is considered a monster for the ghoulish way they handle their victims. The cannibal, as you might have guessed, eats those she kills, whilst the monster harvests their organs and body parts. The Grim just rots his victims from the inside out. All of them are supposedly outcasts from the rogue clans, which is why it is assumed they are from Kiri, as a few years back a lot of rogue clans joined the village. Kakashi replied in answer to his students as he kept a wary eye on the masked man in front of him. Mito paled at that as she looked at Naruto in horror. A look that caused Naruto's chest to begin hurting. Sasuke, though, his eyes seemed to gleam with sudden excitement. So if they are in our bingo book, that must mean they are enemies, Sasuke said quietly as he kept his eyes fixed on Naruto. Sasuke, back down now, Kakashi warned sternly, even as he shifted his stance slightly, readying himself as he did so. He had underestimated his young student, though, as with a shout Sasuke charged the black-masked hunter Nin, the black-haired Uchiha, seemingly oblivious to Kakashi's shout for him to stop. Instead, his mind was fully consumed by his need to get stronger. No doubt his justification for attacking Naruto was to test his strength. The fault was partially Naruto's, as he had been suppressing his chakra and had not been using his killer intent. Him having decided such things would make convincing Kakashi to back off harder. But it seems to have had the opposite effect, as Sasuke had seen his lack of presences as a weakness, and had thus decided to attack. Raising his axe and channeling his chakra to his muscles, Naruto prepared to knock the Uchiha down. He would not allow some child to get away with attacking him, even if that child was the younger brother of his sort of friend, Itachi. Naruto did not get a chance to slap the Uchiha down, though, as he soon found himself face to face with Kakashi. The man's single Sharingan spinning as he used a lightning-enshrouded kunai to block Naruto's axe. Letting out a hiss of irritation, Naruto brought his foot up to deliver a kick to Kakashi's gut, even as his other hand went to grip Kakashi's free hand. Breaking away, Kakashi grabbed the Uchiha by the back of his collar before he threw him behind him as he landed on his feet. His hands already up again by that point and moving to create a number of seals. Lightning style, lightning dragon jutsu. A dragon made entirely out of Kakashi's lightning exploded from the air in front of the gray-haired man. The elemental dragon then proceeded to shoot through the air towards Naruto. Twin chakra chains exploded out of Naruto's back as he saw what was coming, the chains moving to create a cross in front of him to protect him from Kakashi's jutsu. The sight of the chains caused Kakashi's eyes to widen, as well as Mito. Both of them shocked as they saw this mysterious person use uzumaki chakra chains, though whether they were truly that was debatable, considering that the chains were forged out of bluish-gray chakra instead of golden-colored chakra. Even so, the sight of them were enough to shock the two, a shock that was increased when Naruto used the chains to bulldoze through Kakashi's jutsu, his axe already raised as he blurred towards Kakashi. Mito, Sasuke, get out of here, get to Tazuna and find yourselves a safe and defensible location. Kakashi's grunted out as he substituted himself with a nearby log, the log shattering into pieces as Naruto's axe struck it. But sensei, Mito called out, conflicted. Kakashi didn't have time to reply as Naruto was once again on him, sparks flying as they fought, Naruto's axe and Kakashi's kunai deflecting each other. Even as Naruto produced 4 more chakra chains from behind him, before he used them all to attack Kakashi's, becoming a maelstrom of destruction as the ground and trees around them were ripped up and turned to dust by Naruto's chakra chains. Kakashi being forced entirely on the defensive as he had to rely on his Sharingan and experience to avoid Naruto's brutal onslaught. You should have left whilst I gave you the chance, Naruto shouted, more than a little pissed off at how things had gone down. You tried to harm one of my precious students, Kakashi replied stoically, even as he noticed the pitted and rusted blade of his once immaculate kunai, his eyes widening as he once again took note of the unusual color of Naruto's chakra. You still have chance, Kakashi. Leave now and I will not pursue, stay, and I will have no choice but to kill you. Naruto spoke up once more. I think you are getting a little ahead of yourself, boy. Kakashi replied calmly, before he threw his rusted kunai at Naruto and then clasped the wrist of his right hand with his left. As he did this, lightning erupted around his right hand and the sound of chirping birds could be heard ringing around the clearing. The Chidori, I presume. Naruto replied with a scowl as he finally had enough. If Kakashi wanted to be stubborn and die, then that was his own fault. Naruto had no particular care or interest in the man. Whether he lived or died was meaningless. The only reason he had not gone all out to kill him yet had been because he knew the death of Kakashi would upset his sister, and even then that had been a pretty petty reason. Chidori! Kakashi shouted as he shot towards Naruto. His right hand raised to strike him, his Sharingan blazing as he used it to keep track of Naruto's every move. Idiot! Naruto said before he retracted his chains. Instead he decided to form 2.5 foot long, curved claws made of his deathly chakra, from the back of his hands. Once they were formed, Naruto drew more heavily on the souls he kept trapped on his body, using the multiple souls as nothing more than batteries for him to use to increase his already soul-enhanced power. In a blur, Naruto shot towards Kakashi, his body blazing with his grayish chakra, even as the remaining grass and trees around him died. With a loud shout, the both of them clashed. With Clementine. You know you really have earned your reputation, cannibal. Zabuza sneered at Clementine as he substituted with a water clone, allowing Clementine to rip it apart with her knives while he struck at her from behind with his blade. When I was your age, my hands were already dyed red with blood. Zabuza continued even as his eyes widened as glowing and flaring wings of chakra burst from the base of the girl's spine, blocking his blade and forcing him to back off. At first glance, the wings of reddish-purple chakra looked similar to her companion Pain's chakra chains, but on closer inspection you could see they were different, even if only slightly. Both techniques were due to a bloodline, and both of them worked a similar way, i.e. they involved the manipulation of chakra into a physical form. But that was where the similarities stopped. Clementine's kagun, as she called them, were less malleable and were less destructive than Pain's chakra chains. But unlike Pain's chakra chains, she could use hers at long range. Lashing out with her kagun, she forced Zabuza back, as from her kagun sprayed a shower of sharp blades of chakra. Zabuza had to use the large blade of his weapon to block most of them, and even then a few got through his defense, slashing his body as they struck him. But then again, I was a real shinobi. Not a freak like you. Zabuza snarled back, as he swung his blade around trying to fend the blonde off with his blade, only to receive a nasty gash to his thigh as she ran her blade along his leg, gouging out a chunk of his flesh as she did so. "Ah shit, you bitch!" Zabuza snarled before he tried to create some distance from the rapid and deadly huntress. "Oh, I have heard of you, Zabuza," Clementine replied harshly. "And you are more of a freak than any member of the former outcasts." "Ah, so you have heard of me?" "Yes, back when Kirigakure was known as the Bloody Mist Village. Our graduation exam." Zabuza started to chuckle almost dementedly as he clasped his free left hand to his heavily bleeding leg, using his water manipulation to force the wound to clot. Fighting to the death between the students, with only the winner becoming a genin. It was glorious. So much blood. Zabuza raised his voice in excitement. "Yes, and what a freak you were. You murdered a whole class of you comrades, and for what?" Clementine sneered, not at all impressed by the demon of the mist. "Why?" "Well, because it was fun, of course," Zabuza said as he sneered back at Clementine. "Now what I want to know is what the fuck the Mizukage was thinking when she allowed you freaks into the village." Upon saying that, Zabuza disappeared in a spray of mist only to suddenly appear in front of Clementine, viciously lashing out with his sword. The blonde raised ducked under the sword before she threw the stiletto in her right hand at Zabuza, the blade striking him in the left shoulder and lodging there. Undeterred by this, Zabuza lashed out in retaliation at the hunter Nin, striking her with a nasty backhanded punch to the stomach, knocking the air out of Clementine's lungs and sending her crashing to the ground. Gritting her teeth, Clementine immediately rolled into a crouched position before she shot forward, moving at easily elite Jonin's speed as she made full use of her bloodline abilities. The wings of chakra on her back flaring once more as they unleashed another shower of chakra blades on Zabuza. Zabuza substituted with a log to escape, but unfortunately had underestimated Clementine's heightened reflexes and senses. This led to him crying out in pain as half-dozen blades of chakra were lodged in his back. Zabuza by this point was an absolute mess. His body was covered in his own blood and he was covered in multiple gashes and cuts from Clementine's blades, the girl's unnatural speed and reflexes having overcome his years of practice and experience. As well as that, he also had a chunk of his thigh missing, the wound having been partially clotted. Protruding from his now shattered shoulder was also one of Clementine's stiletto blades, so deeply lodged in that it would require a set of pliers to pull it out. Then finally, to finish off his set of battle wounds, there were 6 blades of reddish-purple chakra protruding from his back, courtesy of Clementine's accursed bloodline. Sagging over, Zabuza crashed to his knees, the wounds and his blood loss finally getting the better of him. His bloodshot eyes suddenly widened as he felt something crash painfully into his other shoulder. Looking down at his shoulder, he saw a sharp, silver, metal point sticking out of his bloody shoulder. It did not take a genius to figure out that it was the girl's other stiletto blade. With a dull thud, Zabuza's prized sword, the Kubikiribocho, fell to the ground, landing in the wet, blood-soaked mud, Zabuza's hands no longer having the strength to grip his most prized possession. "Looks like you have killed me," Zabuza said, his eyes disbelieving. "Yes," Clementine replied in confirmation, even as she took hold of Zabuza's blade, easily lifting it with her bloodline-enhanced strength. "If you are going to kill me, could you at least let me hold the Kubikiribocho as you finish me off?" Zabuza asked, his voice almost pleading as he saw his soon-to-be killer holding his precious sword, a blade he had spent most of his life carrying. Turning to look down at Zabuza, Clementine's pink eyes flashed with hidden menace. Instead of answering, she instead merely lifted the blade above her head before bringing it down with a sickening crunch. The blade striking the juncture between Zabuza's neck and shoulder, and tearing through his flesh as it almost cut his upper body in half. The last thing Zabuza ever did was look up at Clementine in shock and fear as she ended his life with his own blade. "That was for the freak comment, asshole," Clementine said to Zabuza's dead body as she raised the sword again before she brought it down again, decapitating the dead man with a single blow. "Now I just have to get rid of the body." Clementine continued, a devious smirk on her face. "With Victor?" Staring straight ahead of him, Victor narrowed his eyes as he stared into a mirror of ice, one of the dozen or so ice mirrors that surrounded him, each of which holding a reflection of the fake Hunter Neen. He had found that despite his change in strategy from mid-range to close combat, that he was still not fast enough to keep up with the speed Haku showcased, especially now she pulled the Hayatan bloodline out of her arse. As her already overwhelming speed was on a whole new level now that she was able to transfer between the multiple ice mirrors that she had created.
Her ice mirrors were more than just a speed boost for her though. They also were acting as a prison, trapping Victor within a dome of almost indestructible mirrors. Already he had tried using both his chakra scalpels and his chakra-infused wires to break through the mirrors so he could escape the dome of mirrors. Any damage he had been able to do to the mirror though was quickly repaired though, the girl having used the moisture in the air to repair them. It was at time like this that Victor cursed the fact that his bloodline limit was not as offensive as either Payne's or Clementine's. Swinging his right arm around, Victor once again used the wires trailing from his gauntlet like a whip, the chakra-enhanced wire making inch-deep gouges on the surrounding mirrors. However, once again the gouges soon disappeared as Haku used the moisture in the air in conjunction with her Hayatan bloodline. In retaliation to Victor's attempted escape, Haku went on to pepper him with Senbon from multiple directions. Most of these Victor dodged using his own low Jonin level speed and reflexes to avoid the Senbon. However, due to the fact that they were rapidly coming from all directions, several of them got lodged in his arms and legs. Not that they did much damage as Victor used his medical ninjutsu to repair any damage he received. This turn of events had led to their duel becoming more of a battle of attrition as Victor continued to damage the mirrors, forcing Haku to expend chakra not only to maintain them but also repair them. Victor, though, was also being forced to expend his chakra and both repairing the damage done to his body and using techniques to damage the mirrors. Lashing out again, a slightly maniacal grin on his face, Victor attempted once more to break out of the dome of mirrors. Haku, though, quickly intercepted him by transporting to the mirror closest to him and landed a quick strike in his gut with a foot-long blade of ice to try and either drive him away or injure him. This was a poorly thought-out response on her part, though, as Victor used her attack to his advantage. A swift strike to her thigh with a chakra scalpel soon saw an end to her speed advantage. Victor, however, did not come away unscathed, however, as he received a blade of ice through his chest, clipping his left lung, causing significant damage as it did so. Damn it! Victor cursed as he leapt away from the ice mirror, his hand glowing green as he attempted to patch up the damage. Deep down, though, he knew that this set of lungs was fucked. He would have to replace them quite soon. Luckily, though, he had managed to harvest quite a few organs from Raiga's men. There is no escape, Hunter-ning. I am afraid I have no choice but to kill you. You are a threat to Master Zabuza, and so you will be removed. Haku said, her pained voice seeming to come from multiple directions. Escape? I think you are the one who can't escape. I have cut the muscles in your thigh. I doubt very much that you will be able to beat me now. Victor replied, spitting out a blob of blood as he did so. And I have damaged your lungs. If you don't heal it immediately, you will begin to drown in your own blood. Haku replied tonelessly. And I very much doubt you will be able to heal a wound like that whilst in a fight. To emphasize this statement, Haku launched more sunban at him, the needles more infrequent now and coming mainly from one direction. Not that that mattered much, as they still worked in forcing Victor to move, disrupting his attempt to patch up his damaged lung. You're an arrogant little bitch, aren't you? Victor grumbled to himself as he once again rolled out of the way of Haku's attack. Hayatan, 1,000 needles of death. In response to his words, dozens of frozen sunban were launched at him from all sides, forcing Victor to dodge and weave between them even as he used his gauntlets to block some of them. I really need to learn more offensive jutsu. Victor muttered tiredly to himself as the bombardment of ice sunban ended. Victor's style of fighting mostly relied on traps and taking his enemy off guard. He was at his most deadly when he had time to change the environment to suit him. That being said, his work as a hunter-nin made such chances low. This had forced him to learn more offensive abilities. But even so, he knew he was lacking powerful ninjutsu, something he knew would come in useful for situations just like this. Hiya! Victor shouted as he leapt forward, sliding on the wet floor. As he did so, raising his arm, he slammed his fist into one of the mirrors, the mirror cracking behind the force of his blow. Jumping up, he used the surface of the cracked mirror as a platform, allowing him to jump off it and away, even as he saw more sunban shattering on the mirror he just used. Landing on his feet, Victor kept moving, avoiding the occasional flurry of sunban as he tried to think up a new plan. Conscious as he did so of how the constant movement was just damaging his lung even more. Could really use a bit of help right now? Victor shouted out as he once again forced his body to move, allowing him to avoid yet more sunban. Like, seriously, girl, just how many fucking sunban do you have? Ha! Can't believe you haven't finished off the apprentice yet. Came the mocking voice of Clementine, clearly audible from outside of the dome of ice mirrors. I mean, I just finished off her master, and you are struggling with his little servant girl. Master Zabuza, Haku suddenly said in shock. Looking through the gaps in the dome of mirrors, Victor could see the bloody form of Clementine approaching him, her skin and armor stained in blood, even as she sent him a bloody grin. Victor very much doubted the blood was Clementine's. This was reinforced by the fact that she was holding Zabuza's sword in her right hand, the blood-stained blade resting comfortably on her shoulder. Victor obviously was not the only one to see this, as the ice mirrors around him shattered as his opponent exploded out of them, her own injuries forgotten as she rushed Clementine. "Clementine, don't kill her!" Victor called out from where he stood. "Whatever." Clementine replied as she weathered Haku's bombardment of sunban, her naturally durable stopping the needles from even penetrating her skin. Taking a step forward, Clementine swung Zabuza's blade, using the flat of the blade to strike Haku in the head. Her strike easily hit the girl due to the fact that the muscles in her thigh were severed, restricting her movement, and her mind was clouded by her anger over Zabuza's death. With a crash, Haku hit the ground unconscious, her fake Hunterine mask shattered, and a small pool of blood beginning to form around her head. "And that, Victor, is how you defeat an enemy," Clementine said smugly as she casually leant on Zabuza's sword, a vicious grin on her face. "That is an assist at best," Victor replied grumpily as he approached her, a glowing green hand on his wounded chest as he patched up his lung. "I did all the hard work, you just delivered the finishing blow." "Well, not exactly finishing," Clementine commented as she used her foot to turn Haku's body over so she could look at her now unmasked face. "Speaking of which, why did you ask me not to kill her? She has the Hayatan bloodline," Victor replied as he pushed Clementine away from the girl and knelt down beside her, his hand on her head as he checked over her injuries, making sure they weren't fatal. "Oh, okay," Clementine replied. "So we are taking her back to Kiri? She is most likely the last Hayatan user in existence. The last of her clan. Killing her would be crime of the highest order," Victor replied seriously. "We are going to take her back to the village with us and let Lady Terumi decide her fate. Knowing her, she will most likely get the girl to join Kiri and make her own clan," Clementine grumbled. "I would hope so. However, whether or not that happens depends on the girl. I very much doubt she will take the death of her master well," Victor replied as he looked down at the girl, a frown on his face. "She'll get over it," Clementine replied callously as she threw the unconscious girl over her shoulder and began to walk away. "Now come on, we need to catch up with Pain." "I'm coming," Victor grunted as he followed his teammate, the two of them swiftly leaving the clearing as they followed the trail of destruction that Pain had left. With Naruto spitting out a wad of blood, Naruto glared at the battered and bruised Kakashi opposite him. Their fight by this point had left the clearing and was now near the village of Wave itself. Their struggle having left a swathe of blackened and cratered ground and rotten trees and plants. Both Naruto and Kakashi were covered in wounds, with Kakashi's being more serious as due to the nature of Naruto's chakra his wounds had already festered. Naruto had been absolutely merciless with his chakra claws, tearing through anything Kakashi threw his way and never allowing the gray-haired Jonin to escape him, falling back on using his senses to track the man's soul when he had to. By this point their fight had simply become about the principle, neither really cared about what started it. Or about how if they both stopped then they could both walk away whole and healthy. That both didn't occur to them and wouldn't have been accepted if it had. For Naruto, Kakashi had challenged him. In a way no one else ever had, well, no one living at least. Naruto was a hunter by nature, his entire existence relied on him hunting down others to consume their souls. Just like how Victor needed to hunt down spare body parts and Clementine fresh meat. Hunting was in their nature and Kakashi had proven himself to be a more than worthy prey. "You live up to your reputation, Kakashi Hatake," Naruto said as he spat out another mouthful of blood. "And your reputation doesn't quite live up to you," Kakashi replied as he looked tiredly over at his opponent, his body aching from the numerous wounds he had received and his chakra reserves all but depleted from his overuse of his Sharingan eye. "I can only assume your full abilities weren't listed in the bingo book because no one has ever survived when you went all out on them." "Something like that," Naruto replied, before he dashed forward again, leaving blackened footprints behind him as he pumped his body full of chakra, drawing on more and more on the souls he contained as he did so. In an explosion of wood, Naruto destroyed the log Kakashi substituted himself with. Turning swiftly on his heel, a multitude of barbed chains exploded from Naruto's hand, tearing into the woodland around him as he homed in on Kakashi. Naruto's eyes flashing crimson as he kept track of Kakashi's soul. Leaping from branch to branch, Kakashi fled Naruto's onslaught, having realized that in the condition he was in he would not be able to face it head-on. Creating a shadow clone, the real Kakashi shunshined away, hoping to get behind Naruto whilst the masked Huntonin focused on his clone. It was not to be, however, as when Kakashi reappeared in a swirl of leaves, it was to find Naruto no longer where he had been. Soul release, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto muttered to himself as he looked down on the injured Kakashi from where he was hidden in a nearby tree. Creating a hand seal, Naruto's body began to glow a bluish-gray color, even as a number of ethereal shapes tore themselves free of him. Soundlessly, the shapes took on a distinctly human form. Soon enough, Naruto was flanked by a half-dozen ghost-like shinobi, their features smoky and their bodies partial translucent. "Finish him," Naruto muttered tonelessly as the six figures went to attack Kakashi. This was a jutsu of Naruto's own creation, heavily based on the Shadow Clone Jutsu. It involved Naruto creating a partial shadow clone, but instead of making a clone of himself, he instead forced one of the souls he had devoured into the chakra-formed body. The souls were completely under Naruto's control, but yet retained enough of their former personality and skills to still operate autonomously if necessary. This for Naruto had been necessary after he realized he could not use the proper Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto's own unique chakra was too volatile for a Shadow Clone body to use, which led to them being destroyed within a few moments of being created. But by forcing one of the souls he had eaten into the body, he found a way around this weakness, as the clones would primarily function off of the soul's chakra, with him being able to control them due to the connection between the souls and himself. Kakashi soon found himself struggling, as he found himself having to dodge the coordinated assault of 6 ethereal shinobi. Forming a hand seal, Kakashi created a dragon made of lightning, which he then proceeded to use to destroy 3 of his 6 attackers. Pulling out a new kunai, he channeled lightning chakra into it before he used it to cut down another one. This one, though, upon being destroyed, exploded into gray smoke which began to rot anything it touched. Forcing himself backward, Kakashi clasped his left hand with his right one, the skin having already been stripped away even as the muscle beneath desiccated. Letting out a shout of pain, Kakashi had to force himself to dodge the other 2, both of whom began to go through a number of hand seals. Soon he found himself having to dodge a powerful water bullet jutsu and a mildly powerful fireball jutsu. Dancing backward, Kakashi began to weave in between the attacks the 2 remaining ghost-like clones sent his way, keeping a wary eye out as he did so for the clone's puppet master. It appeared Grim, as he was known in the bingo book, was a lot more dangerous than he thought. Throwing the now partially corroded kunai, Kakashi managed to destroy the 5th clone, even as he had to move again to avoid the remaining one. Turning around, Kakashi was met with a face full of corrosive gray smoke as the clone was dispersed. He didn't have time to react to this, though, as from out of the smoke emerged Naruto. The smoke causing him no discomfort at all as he engaged Kakashi once more in combat. His silver axe a blur as the gray-haired man struggled to keep up with Naruto. Gritting his teeth, Naruto went in for the kill, or at least he would have done if the presence of 3 more shinobi hadn't distracted him. Kakashi-sensei. Jumping back, Naruto had to dodge as a blade of wind struck the ground he was just stood on. Looking up, Naruto soon had to create one of his chakra chains to block a large ball of fire. "What are you doing here? Get away!" Kakashi grunted as he collapsed onto one knee. "We won't leave you, Kakashi-sensei." Mito shouted as she made some hand seals before sending another blade of wind in Naruto's direction. Lashing out with his chakra chain, Naruto blocked the blade of wind. Kakashi questioned as he pushed himself up to his feet. In answer to his question, Sasuke and Sakura revealed themselves, the Uchiha going through a set of hand seals before breathing out another ball of fire, and the pink-haired girl throwing kunai. Little shits. Naruto grunted as he weathered their attacks before counter-attacking. Rushing forward, Naruto delivered a kick into the pink-haired girl's gut, sending her crashing into a nearby tree unconscious, a small trail of blood leaking from her mouth. Sakura! Mito shouted as she saw her teammate crash into a tree. HN! Sasuke grunted as he sent another fireball at Naruto, only to let out a gasp as a chakra chain cut through his technique and slammed into him, taking him completely by surprise as it sent him crashing through the nearby trees, his body limp and his mind barely conscious as it landed on the floor. Back off! Naruto shouted in warning as he glared down at the genin, his eyes locking with Mito's. Make us! Mito growled even as a shroud of red chakra began to form around her, her teeth sharpening even as her appearance became more feral. A weight seemed to settle in the air as a single red tail formed behind Mito, a tail made out of pure chakra. The Kyuubi. Naruto muttered with a frown. I need more power. Hold on. You replied in Naruto's mind, even as he began to draw on the hundreds of souls trapped within Naruto, drawing chakra from every soul before transferring it to Naruto. The air around Naruto began to shimmer as he did this, even as his eyes began to glow white as Naruto began to draw on the power of the hundreds of souls he had devoured, each one adding its own chakra to his. Soon enough his own chakra began to match the amount of power Mito's one-tailed form was releasing. Letting out a feral snarl, Mito exploded forward, her body blurring as she gave in to her almost overwhelming anger. The negative emotions the Kyuubi embodied affecting her already angry mind, causing her to almost lose control. As she was doing this, she also began to let loose her unrestrained killing intent, which was a force in itself as it forced the Uchiha to completely lose consciousness and caused a bead of sweat to trickle down the injured Kakashi's face. I will give you one more warning, back down. Naruto said, his voice echoing as he spoke, as if it was not just he who spoke but hundreds of other people all at the same time. Mito completely ignored this as she rushed Naruto, all thought of techniques and skill forgotten as she just used pure power and aggression to fight, completely giving in to her instincts to maul that which angered her.
The two collided in an explosion as they began to trade blows. Naruto's strikes were more coordinated, even as Mito's attacks were stronger and more vicious. With a crashing sound, Mito landed a brutal blow to Naruto's chest, sending him crashing backwards a dozen meters and through several trees. Leaping to his feet, Naruto vanished in a blur only to appear above Mito, his foot raised to deliver an axe kick to the girl's head. Twisting in midair, Mito managed to dodge Naruto's kick. However, she was unprepared for the half-dozen chains that burst from Naruto's body. The chains wrapping around Mito's arms, legs and body as Naruto bound her before using them to smash her into the ground, creating a small crater beneath the girl. Raising her in the air again, Naruto once more smashed her into the ground, a wide grin on his face even as his eyes glowed with condensed power. He could feel it, he could feel his chakra slowly eating through the Kyuubi's own corrosive chakra. It was slow going though, and tiring too, as the Kyuubi's chakra was incredibly dense and not at all human. Mito struggled as she was bound, her face contorting in rage as she quickly gave in to her rage at being trapped. As she did this, a second tail began to form behind her and her struggles got stronger, slowly beginning to overpower Naruto's hold on her. Seeing the second tail beginning to form, Naruto gave up on the idea of binding his sister until she calmed down and stopped drawing on the Kyuubi's power. Instead, he decided to just knock her unconscious, that way she could no longer draw on it at all. That being said though, knocking a Kyuubi enhanced uzumaki unconscious would not be easy. Slamming her into the ground again with his chains, Naruto leapt into the air before he came down on his sister with both feet extended. With a loud crash, Mito found her head smashed into the ground, letting out a growl. Mito attempted to get to her feet, she was unable to though as Naruto continued to keep her bound. Dropping his axe as he released yet more chains from his arms, trying to keep Mito down, a task that was becoming harder as her power slowly increased along with her aggression. "For fuck's sake, just stay down," Naruto growled as he pulled her towards him before delivering a punch to her head, the blow causing a concussive wave that cratered the ground beneath them, and sent a shock wave that caused the trees around them to rustle as if caught up in a sudden gust. Winding his chains around her neck, Naruto began to tighten them, attempting to suffocate Mito until she passed out. A bead of sweat railing down his own face as he felt the strain of keeping down his Cubophyte sister. He really needed to learn some Fuinjutsu. Letting out a shout of rage, Mito continued to struggle even as her vision began to go dark as she slowly lost consciousness, the Kyuubi's chakra cloak beginning to flicker as she stopped drawing on its power. Finally, Naruto muttered to himself as he saw Mito stop struggling, the red chakra cloak disappearing as she passed out. Pulling his chakra back immediately, Naruto cast a concerned eye over her as he made sure his chakra didn't hurt her. Looking down, his glowing white eyes gleaming, Naruto let out a sigh of satisfaction as he saw he hadn't harmed his sister, aside from suffocating her till she passed out. But then again, that was for her own good. In the enraged state she was in, she could have done something she would later come to regret. The satisfaction, however, soon came to an end as he felt a sudden pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw a lightning enshrouded hand sticking out of his chest, right where his heart was. "Ah shit," Naruto muttered as he stopped drawing on the souls within his body. With a thud, Naruto fell to his knees, vaguely aware as he did of Kakashi's cry of pain as his entire right arm was disintegrated by the intensity of Naruto's chakra. His entire arm withering away in seconds, leaving only a decay stump just below his elbow as the intensity of Naruto's chakra destroyed it. Naruto unsteadily made his way back onto his feet, aware as he did so of the gaping hole in his chest. Turning around, he looked down at Kakashi, the gray-haired man holding onto the rotten stump that had once been his arm, with a look of agony on his face. "Well, that was a pretty stupid move, to let your guard down like that. A less than impressed, you said in Naruto's mind. Thanks for the warning," Naruto thought irritably as he began to shakily made it to his feet before looking out at the now destroyed clearing. Yeah, you know what you have to do, I take it," Yu replied with a sigh. Reaching out his hand, Naruto grabbed Kakashi by the throat before he easily lifted him off the ground, his eyes still glowing white with the compressed power of all the souls he contained running through him, the gray-haired man feebly trying to break Naruto's grip with his already injured left hand. "For what it's worth, Kakashi, I did not want to have to kill you," Naruto said tiredly before he began to drain Kakashi of his life. Looking on with eyes wide with shock, Kakashi could only open his mouth and let loose a muted scream of pain. As his skin began to turn wrinkled and turn gray, his hair thinning and turning white. Within a matter of minutes, Kakashi was dead, his body having desiccated to the point at which it just crumbled to dust in Naruto's. Shaking off the dust that had once been Kakashi's body, Naruto brought his hand to his chest, feeling the smooth skin beneath his hand that showed that his wound was fully healed, even if it was a little sore still. "I really hate doing that," Naruto muttered to himself in disgust. Due to the nature of his chakra, Naruto was unable to heal naturally. What he could do though was take the physical life force of another though and then use that to fix his wounds. It was not something he enjoyed though, as doing what he had just done often made him feel like a parasite, like a plague on the world. "Well, damn, looks like you made a real mess," a female voice said, alerting Naruto to its presence. "We could feel your little fight with the Kyuubi girl from half a mile away." Turning around, Naruto found himself facing Clementine and Victor. "So you gone finish the job or just leave them?" Clementine asked as she nodded over to the three unconscious genin. "We have done enough damage, let's go," Naruto replied as he began to walk away, his hand still clutching his chest in discomfort. "Do you really want to leave 3 witnesses?" Clementine asked with a scowl. Naruto grimaced at that before sending her a dark look. "We are not killing them, that would just cause more trouble for us." Then what are we going to do then? Victor asked, cutting off any retort Clementine could make. Leave them, there was a bounty out on Kakashi and we are in neutral territory. Furthermore, he and his team interrupted our mission. From a political point of view, there are likely to be little to no repercussions. He died in the line of duty, and that is it. Naruto replied with a shrug. Do you reckon the Hokage of the Leaf will see it that way? Victor asked, an unsure expression on his face. Well, we will just have to wait and see. Naruto replied with a shrug. Now come on, let's go. I take it Zabuza and his apprentice are dead. Zabuza is dead and his sword is reclaimed, Clementine said as she showed Naruto the sword. As for his apprentice, we are bringing her back to Kiri, Victor's idea. Naruto raised his eyebrows at that before he shrugged. I am sure you have a reason. Now let's go, I have an idea which could be very profitable. With that said, Naruto disappeared into the surrounding trees, soon followed by Clementine and Victor, leaving behind in their wake 3 unconscious genin. In Konoha one day later. Lord Hokage, the reinforcements you sent out at Kakashi's request have returned. A member of the ANBU wearing a lion mask said as he stood before the seated Minato namikaze. What already? Minato asked with a frown on his face. Is Team 7 with them? The ANBU shifted slightly at that. Mito Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno have returned. What of Kakashi? Is he still out in Wave? Minato asked with a frown. The location of Kakashi Hatake is unknown, though from statements from his team it is suspected he is dead. Dead? Minato said, a blank expression on his face as he heard of the potential fate of his former student. Do we know who did it? The genin do not know much, but from what we have been able to gather, a skirmish occurred between the missing nin Zabuza Momochi, Team 7 and some hunter nin. Minato brought his hand to his head at that, before he began to massage his temples. I am going to need to know the full story behind what has happened. In Konoha one day later. Lord Hokage, the reinforcements you sent out at Kakashi's request have returned. A member of the ANBU wearing a lion mask said as he stood before the seated Minato namikaze. What already? Minato asked with a frown on his face. Is Team 7 with them? The ANBU shifted slightly at that. Mito Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno have returned. What of Kakashi? Is he still out in Wave? Minato asked with a frown. The location of Kakashi Hatake is unknown, though from statements from his team it is suspected he is dead. Dead? Minato said, a blank expression on his face as he heard of the potential fate of his former student. Do we know who did it? The genin do not know much, but from what we have been able to gather, a skirmish occurred between the missing nin Zabuza Momochi, Team 7 and some hunter nin. Minato brought his hand to his head at that, before he began to massage his temples. I am going to need to know the full story behind what has happened. In Wave with Naruto. Clementine, Victor, do you two see anything? Naruto muttered to his 2 teammates as he perched alongside them on one of the upper branches of a tree. Nothing, those Konoha ANBU are probably long gone by now. Victor muttered in reply as he looked over to Naruto. I still don't get why the fuck we are hiding. This is neutral territory, let's just go do your idea then get out of here. Clementine muttered irritably from Naruto's other side. And if any of those tree huggers get in our way, we kill them nice and quietly. It's likely the ANBU have one of those Hiraishin markers the 4th Hokage uses. Last thing we need is a pissed off Hokage coming after us. Naruto replied, his own voice harsh after having had this conversation with Clementine before. Whatever. Clementine muttered before she started to look around the quiet forested area of Wave they were currently in. Anyway, like Victor said, the ANBU are gone now. They probably just picked up those brats, searched around a bit and then left. Good. Naruto muttered in reply. Then let's go. This should be quick, just an in and out job. So like your sex life then? Clementine mocked, grinning widely as she saw him glare at her. "Fuck you," Naruto muttered in reply. "Not if it is just an in-and-out job?" was Clementine's quick-witted response to Naruto's less than eloquent retort. "Why again are we friends with her?" Naruto asked Victor as said girl snickered to herself. "Because I bring some excitement to your otherwise boring lives," Clementine replied mockingly. "Come on, let's go, I have a bad enough headache already." "I don't want to make it worse dealing with your shit," Naruto replied as he leapt from his hiding place. What he had just said was true, he did have a bad headache. But that was mostly the fault of you. After Naruto had consumed both Kakashi's soul and life force, you had decided to get some more practice. He had since spent the last 2 hours trying to pry as much from Kakashi's soul as he could. The first thing he tried to get was the Sharingan eye, but had found that he couldn't transfer it over to Naruto. Next he went for Kakashi's memories. The man was known for having copied 1,000 jutsu with his Sharingan eye, and he was more than eager to check those out. His success with this had been somewhat better. Due to how well organized Kakashi's mind was, you had been able to take a lot of Kakashi's memories from his captured soul. These memories included some of his training and battles. Now due to the nature of Naruto's chakra he could not use elemental jutsu anymore, after all his chakra embodied death. This meant that it was very potent and very volatile, as such it could not be manipulated into the different elements, at least not without massive control and willpower. This in battle was not something you could do with ease or on the fly, at least not without a lot of training and even more experience. But it was very malleable and also very versatile, thus you had set about adapting and changing Kakashi's techniques, making new versions of them that Naruto could use. Which although useful for Naruto was also very annoying, as Yu's constant muttering echoed around his head causing him a massive headache. Would you please shut the fuck up?" Naruto thought harshly to himself. "I could, but then again I could also stop making up new techniques for you to use. A shame too, as I just found the memories where Kakashi created the Chidori. Such a shame, imagine how fun a death-powered Chidori would have been, oh well." Yu trailed off. Naruto was more than aware that his other half was smirking to himself as he was saying this. "Don't be shitty," Naruto replied to Yu. "You're the one being shitty, not me. Here I am going through that perverted scarecrow's creepy memories, and why? Because I want us to get stronger, yet how do you react? You tell me to shut up." Yu replied with false sadness. "You can be a real dick sometimes," Naruto muttered. "You do realize that technically I am you, so by calling me a dick you are in fact calling yourself a dick?" Yu questioned mockingly. Naruto didn't answer him, though, because at that point they had reached their destination. In front of them was a large mansion, surrounded on all sides by high walls, with mean-looking thugs patrolling them. Looks cozy," Naruto muttered as he looked up at the large mansion. "Clementine, I want you and Victor to get rid of all the thugs. Do what you want with them, I don't care." "Are you going to go after Gata then?" Clementine questioned as she unsheathed the Kubikira Bocho from behind her back. A large grin spreading across her face, even as her pink eyes sparkled with mischief. "Of course," Naruto muttered as he unsealed his axe, giving it a few practice swings as he did so. "Liberating Wave from his evil ways is going to be my good deed for the day. And stealing his vast wealth? What is that going to be?" Clementine asked sarcastically. "That is going to be Gata giving a charitable donation to Kiri. With maybe a bonus thrown in for us," Naruto replied with a grin. "Make sure it is a nice bonus. I feel like treating myself," Clementine added. "When do you not?" Victor asked as he kept his eyes fixed on the building in front of him. "Alright Pain, you go find Gata, do that soul-eating thing of yours, get all his wealth and then we can get out of here. Lady Terumi probably expected us back a day ago." "That is the plan," Naruto replied as he channeled chakra to his legs before he leapt from where he was stood. Easily clearing the high wall as he soared over it, only to land noiselessly on the roof of Gata's mansion. How about a competition patchwork? Who can kill the most goons? Clementine asked as she looked over at Victor. Bitch please, as if it will even be a challenge to beat you, was Victor's snappy reply. Oh, it's on, it is so on. A couple of days later, in Konoha, the Hokage's office. It was a dark day in Konoha as the remaining members of Team 7 were ushered into the Hokage's office. It had been 2 days since they had returned from Wave, bloody and battered, and only an hour since they were released from the hospital. Sasuke Uchiha had been admitted to the hospital for severe infection. He had a wound on his stomach in the shape of a foot. At first the medic has thought it was a burn of some sort, however deeper inspection showed that the damaged flesh had actually been rotted, so much so that he gained a nasty infection from the festering wound. The medic had to cut away the diseased flesh before healing it. This was a long process as the Uchiha by that point had become delirious. Sakura Haruna had been admitted to the hospital due to a spinal injury. Apparently she had been slapped aside during the fight with the enemy shinobi and had been sent crashing through a number of trees. Her body had been pretty broken, with severe damage having been done to her spine. The medic though she would recover, but had admitted that it could take a number of years of rehabilitation before she could be fit to be a shinobi again. Nito Namikaze too had been taken to the hospital. But unlike her teammates, she had been taken for mostly superficial reasons. She had admitted to the ANBU team that retrieved her and her teammates that she had used the Kyuubi's chakra, having taken it as far as using 2 tails. This had of course concerned Minato, who ordered her taken to the hospital, where he asked Jiraiya and Kushina to check her over to make sure she was okay. Hearing the door to his office open, Minato looked up to see 2 of the 3 remaining members of Team 7 file into the room. Minato frowned slightly as he saw the sorry state they were all still in. The Uchiha boy was pale, very pale, his hands still trembling slightly. Though whether that was in fear or anger Minato couldn't tell, the boy's face was completely blank. Mito though, she was clearly upset. She had dark bags under her eyes, no doubt from her not being able to sleep, and was a lot quieter than she usually was. Thank you for coming, you two. If you take a seat we can begin, Minato said kindly, gesturing to the 2 seats in front of his desk. Some may think him insensitive for calling the both of them in when they were still so shaken and had only just been released from the hospital. But Minato didn't have a choice. He had a missing presumed dead jonin and a potential skirmish with a foreign village. He needed to know about everything that happened. Only then could he decide where to go from here. At the moment, the only action he had taken was sending out ANBU to complete Team 7's mission and search for Kakashi if he was still alive. Those ANBU had returned earlier this morning, reporting back no sign of Kakashi and that Gato and his thugs were all missing, presumed dead as well. This pretty much made the mission null and void, not that they weren't still keeping the payment for it though. Nodding, the 2 genins silently took their seats, looking over the desk at their Hokage as they waited for him to speak again. So Mito, I would like for you to tell me what happened. Don't leave out any details and make sure you are as accurate as possible. I need to know exactly what went down in Wave, Minato said as he fixed his eyes on his daughter, conscious as he did so that Irika, their old academy teacher, shifted slightly in his chair at the side of the room as he did so. He had called in their teacher both for emotional support and also so the man could write down everything the 2 said. He would need their report documented for his records. Also in the room were both Kushina and Jiraiya, though their reason for being there were quite obvious. Kushina was there for Mito, and Jiraiya was there as Minato's advisor and spy master. Sasuke, I would like you to add anything Mito might miss, Minato added in as he looked down at the still pale Uchiha. He had brought them both in at the same time because he knew it was the best way to get the truth out of them. Their reactions to what each other said would tell him everything. Not that he thought Mito would deliberately lie to him, the Uchiha though. Okay, the Uchiha replied curtly, with a swift nod of his head. Okay, then I would like you to begin with when you got to Wave, Minato said, knowing that this is where the trouble went down. The confrontation with the Demon Brothers had already been included in the report Kakashi sent back when he requested reinforcement. We got to the island by boat, Mito began, her voice shaky at first, before it strengthened as she continued to speak. It was around 2 in the afternoon when we made it onto the island. It was misty when we arrived and wet. As soon as we docked up the boat we made our way inland, heading towards Tazuna's house. Where did you get the boat? Minato asked calmly. It was owned by a friend of Tazuna. The guy took us to wave under cover of the mist on the shore. Mito replied, slightly confused. Was the boatman nervous? Did he ask any questions about what you were doing? Minato asked again, Irika jotting down everything that was said as he did so. Well, yeah, he was nervous, but that was more about us getting caught sneaking into wave. He seemed to know Tazuna quite well. Mito replied, her confusion growing. Okay, and when you docked his boat, did he wait around to see where you went next? Minato asked again. No, he just left again. Why are you asking so much about the boatman? Mito asked, her confusion turning to irritation. I am just making sure we have a clear picture on the exact events of what happened. Minato replied calmly, not reacting to Mito's sudden spike of irritation. He knew being interrogated wasn't easy, even when it was just a simple conversation like this. So what happened then? You started traveling inland? Yes, we traveled inland from the coast. Everything was quiet as we went, though we were all still on edge because of the shinobi who attacked us earlier. As we were traveling, I caught some movement out of the corner of my eye. I reacted and threw a shuriken that hit this rabbit. Mito continued, calming down as she once more got into recounting the events of that day. A rabbit? Minato asked curiously. What kind of rabbit? It was just some white rabbit. Why does it matter? Mito asked impatiently. A white rabbit, Minato, at this time of year. Jiraiya spoke up, sharing a knowing look with Minato. Yes, no doubt one that is meant to be used for substitution if necessary. A bit of an archaic trick, not one you see much nowadays. Minato replied, nodding for Irika to write that down. Okay, Mito, what happened next? Zabuza happened, he threw his sword at us. But we noticed it and managed to duck down and avoid it. I mean, both me and Kakashi were able to sense him coming, so he wasn't able to take us by surprise. After we did that, Zabuza showed himself standing on a tree branch. Mito continued carefully, making sure she got her facts right.
And was Zabuza alone? Minato asked, sitting up straighter as he did so. Well, yes, or at least he was at first. Mito replied, a frown on her face. What do you mean by that? Minato asked as he waved down Jiraiya, who looked like he was going to ask Mito the same thing. Well, when Zabuza showed himself, Kakashi recognized him, just like how Zabuza recognized Kakashi. Anyway, Kakashi lifted his headband and showed his Sharingan, which Zabuza already knew about. After that, they began to fight. Kakashi told us to get in a defensive formation around the client while he did this, which is what we did. Mito continued as she looked over to Sasuke, only to see the boy still staring off blankly, seemingly not paying attention to the conversation. So yeah, Kakashi and Zabuza had just started fighting when someone threw some shuriken between them. The both saw it coming and jumped apart. So someone threw shuriken between them to split them up? Minato asked, a slight frown on his face as Mito nodded. What happened next? Well, Zabuza shouted out a name, which was. Mito began as she tried to remember the name Zabuza called out. Haku. Sasuke added intonelessly. Oh yeah, right, Zabuza shouted out for this Haku who turned up next to him. But this Haku said she wasn't the one who threw the shuriken. Mito continued speaking, throwing a grateful look to Sasuke. So Zabuza and his accomplice did not know who threw the shuriken, which suggests they probably weren't working together. So what happened next? Well, a voice started speaking. He told Kakashi to take his team and leave with Tazuna. But Kakashi refused to back off until he knew who they were. Mito continued speaking. So Kakashi suspected they might have something to do with Zabuza, which would mean he would not retreat without knowing that they wouldn't attack him from behind. You said they, though, Mito. Were there more than one? Yes, there were 3 different voices speaking. Mito replied. Then when they did reveal themselves, I only saw 3. A standard hunting team then. Jiraiya spoke up as he once again made his presence known. And if they were giving Kakashi a chance to leave, he should have taken it. Caution is good, but being overcautious can get you killed. I am sure Kakashi did what he thought was right. Minato replied to Jiraiya before he turned back to Mito. So what happened next? Did they reveal themselves? Yes, they did, after telling us to back off once more. A female voice spoke up. She sounded kind of impatient. Anyway, she leapt in to attack Zabuza. She was wearing a black mask that looked like a skull. Another guy followed her. He also had a mask on, though it was weird, kind of patchwork-like. Anyway, he went to help his comrade, but was instead attacked by Zabuza's accomplice. Mito continued on, trying to remember what she could of the other two. She had only seen them briefly before she and her teammates had retreated from the clearing. As such, she couldn't give much of a description of them. The other member of the team, though, the leader, I think, he appeared before us. He was so fast he was almost a blur. And what did this man who confronted you look like? Minato questioned. He had heard how unsure she was about the other two, so decided to focus on the one she seemed more confident about. Well, he was tall, around your height, Dad. He was also quite stocky. He had big muscles on his arms and probably his legs. He also had a mask on, though it was completely black and didn't even have a village symbol on it. What else? Oh yeah, he also had this big silver axe that he had in his hand. Mito continued on as she tried to give the best description she could of him. Most Hunterine do not usually show their village symbol, so the fact that they didn't is not that surprising. The axe, though, and the black mask. They seemed familiar. Minato muttered to himself before looking up at a thoughtful Jiraiya. Any idea? Yeah, the description sounds very familiar. Jiraiya also muttered as he tried to remember which of the numerous shinobi it could be. Oh, Kakashi recognized. He said he was someone called Grim, and that he was in our bingo book, and that he might work for Kiri. Mito added in helpfully. Grim, that is who it is. Minato said as he began to search through the stack of documents on his desk looking for his copy of the bingo book. Okay, here we go. Minato muttered as he found the book before he flipped through it. When he got to the right page, he showed the picture on it to Mito and Sasuke. Is this the man you are talking about? Bingo book entry. Name, unknown. Clan, unknown. Alias, the Grim. Rank, A-rank Hunterine. Village, unknown, suspected to be Kirigakure. Status, alive. Abilities, tracking skills, assassination skills, known to be skilled in Kenjutsu. Further skills unknown, no one has ever survived fighting him. Weapons, silver war axe made of chakra metal. Associates, the monster, see page 37, and the cannibal, see page 43. Known bounties. 20,000 Ryo in Konoha. 25,000 Ryo in IWA. 55,000 Ryo in Kumo. Known crimes, assassination, torture, operating without permission in foreign lands. End of entry. Looking at the picture, Mito nodded. Yeah, that is the guy who confronted us. At least I think it is. Kakashi definitely call him Grim. Which would make the other two the cannibal and the monster. Okay, so what happened next? Minato asked as he put the bingo book down. He was worried now. Not much may have been known about this shinobi's abilities, but the fact he and his team were all A-rank was worrying. He wouldn't even send a Jonin team to deal with them, let alone a Genin team. Well, anyway, after that, Kakashi told him that he knew who he was. To which Grim told him to back off as Kakashi was interfering in his mission. Mito replied as she tried to remember everything that had happened. After all, it had all happened so fast. A reasonable request, especially since they were not a threat to Kakashi or his mission. So where did it go wrong? Jiraiya interrupted again, only to receive an elbow in the gut from Kushina. Well, if you would stop interrupting, we can find out. Kushina replied irritably, before she smiled gently at her daughter. Please go on, sweetie. I know it might be hard, but we have to know what happened. Right. Mito replied as she sent Sasuke a nervous glance. Well, this grim guy appeared in front of us and told us to leave. But before we could I attacked. Sasuke spoke out, still toneless. And why did you attack him, Sasuke? Did Kakashi give you an order? Minato asked, his eyes narrowing as he looked down at the young Uchiha. No, but the guy was a threat though. Mito said, talking for Sasuke. That's why he attacked, take him by surprise. Is that true, Sasuke? Minato asked, calmly ignoring Mito's last comment. The chance of Genin could take an A-ranked shinobi by surprise was almost laughable. Kakashi said he had a bounty on him from Konoha. That seemed to upset the guy. I thought he was going to attack, so I decided to attack first. Sasuke replied. It was a half-truth at best. He did think the man was going to attack. But that wasn't why he charged him. No, he attacked him to test himself against someone strong. Only he never really got a chance to in the end. Judging by the fact you are not dead, I take it Kakashi stopped you? Minato asked, sensing that at least some of what Sasuke said was true, but knowing that he was most likely trying to cover himself. But he would leave it for now. Actions would be taken later if he deemed them appropriate, but for now he wanted to get the rest of the story. Yeah, the guy raised his axe to hit Sasuke, but Kakashi dragged him back and then he started to fight with him. Mito replied. He told us to get back after that and join Sakura. Oh yeah, he had already told Sakura to retreat back by that point with the client. Mito added on. Minato nodded his head before asking for her to continue. He knew he would have to send them to Inochi to get a more detailed account of exactly what happened, but for now he wanted to hear their account of what happened whilst it was still fresh in their memories. But before we retreated, I did see Kakashi send a lightning dragon jutsu at him. Only for the guy to block it with some chakra chains. Mito replied as she remembered that detail. Chakra chains? Kushina asked sharply as both Jiraiya and Minato reacted in surprise. Yeah, they were kind of similar to yours and Urza's Uzumaki chakra chains. But they were also different. They weren't gold like yours, they were gray. Mito replied as she looked to her mother to see what she would say about that. He has a possible Uzumaki lineage then. Kushina muttered. Wouldn't be surprising if he was from Kiri. I wouldn't be surprised if a number of refugees from my clan fled to the land of water to hide after Yuzu fell. I would have thought we would have heard of this. Especially if an A-ranked shinobi showed that he was capable of using them. Minato said, looking over at Jiraiya, his spymaster. Not if this guy never allowed anyone who saw his abilities to escape him. The only question is why he spared the genin. Surely he now knows that information will get out. Kumo have been after the Uzumaki bloodline for decades. Why spare them? Jiraiya asked the room at large. That I don't know. This worries me. Minato replied as he scowled at nothing, thinking of why Grimm did what he did. If there is one thing that is dangerous to a shinobi, it is the unknown. We can leave that for now. I want to know what happened after that. Minato said as he turned his attention back to Mito and Sasuke. We retreated into the woods. We found Sakura and Tazuna and we continued to retreat. We could still hear the sounds of fighting though and see trees getting destroyed and explosions. I also think I saw Kakashi using a Chidori on the guy. Mito continued as she looked back to her father, trying to explain what she saw in as much detail as she could. So he was taking the fight seriously. What were the other Huntonines doing at this point? Minato asked, having not forgotten about the others. I don't know. We left the clearing quite quickly. We moved away, but we did keep track of Kakashi-sensei. Mito continued. We ended up taking Tazuna to his house where we left him with some of my shadow clones. After that we went back to help Kakashi-sensei. The other Huntonines were probably dealing with Zabuza then. No doubt he is now dead and on his way back to Kiri. Minato replied before he looked expectantly at Mito. So you went to help Kakashi. What was his status when you found him? He was on the run. That Grim guy had sent some weird gray clones after Kakashi, and he was struggling to fight them off. His left hand was already injured, it looked gray and rotten, and he was covered in cuts and wounds. Mito spoke, her face turning pale as she thought back on her sensei's injuries. When we saw he was struggling, we went to help him. He had gray clones? Minato asked, slightly confused, before he turned to Jiraiya. Some kind of new clone jutsu? Maybe. Jiraiya replied thoughtfully. Though from the sounds of it, his chakra chains were also gray, so it could just be an abnormality of his chakra, or it could be some new and obscure bloodline. It's worth looking into. Minato replied with a nod as he saw Irika noted down. So Kakashi was on the defensive and was injured? It appears this Grim is more dangerous than we thought. So what happened next? From there, Mito began to explain what had happened. How both she and Sasuke had went to help Kakashi. How they had momentarily driven Grim back with their elemental jutsu. How Grim had fought back, knocking Sakura away first and then Sasuke, the two of them having been knocked out of the fight and consciousness at that point. It was at that point that Mito admitted her memories became fuzzy. For Minato and Kushina, they knew that this meant. It meant that she had started using the Kyuubi's chakra. Is there anything you can remember after that, Mito? Anything at all? Minato asked his daughter. No, I just felt angry and lashed out at him, but I got trapped by his chakra chains. I just couldn't move no matter how much I struggled. More than that, his chakra chains seemed to bind my chakra, holding it back almost like yours does, Mom. Mito continued, her brow furrowed as she tried to remember what happened when she had used the Kyuubi's chakra. It was a struggle, though, as her mind was clouded by anger and rage at the time. His chakra chain stopped you? Minato asked in surprise. This for him made it very likely that this Grim must have some Uzumaki heritage. The coincidences were too much. A shared look from Kushina told him she had come to a similar conclusion. Furthermore, the fact that Kiri had a shinobi that could possibly restrain the Jinchuriki of the most powerful Bijuu was worrying. Throughout this, Sasuke was looking around in confusion. He knew they were talking about something important, but he didn't know what it was. Was that it then? Do you not remember anything else? Minato said as he looked back to Mito. Mito began as she strained her mind trying to think. After a few seconds, just when Minato was about to tell her that she didn't need to strain herself, Mito opened her eyes as she looked over to her father. I do remember something else. What is it? Minato asked as he focused on his daughter. The last thing I remember seeing before I passed out. It is blurry, but I think I saw Kakashi hit Grim with a chidori to the chest. Mito finished as she tried to remember. She had been on the verge of passing out at that, but she remembered the sound of crackling lighting that caused her to open her eyes. A chidori to the chest. That could have been a killing blow. Minato finished as he looked around at the other people in the room. But if Kakashi managed to kill Grim, what happened to him after that? Maybe the teammates, maybe they finished with Zabuza and came across Kakashi just after he killed their comrade. Kushina said as she thought up what could have happened. But then again, maybe Grim managed to survive the chidori to the chest. If he has Uzumaki heritage like we suspect, it would not be too unlikely for him to have survived. We Uzumaki are a resilient and durable lot. Okay, Mito, Sasuke, you may go. Minato said tiredly as he rubbed his forehead. I would like for Inochi Yamanaka to have a look at your memories of the incident if that is acceptable. Minato continued, knowing he could force them if he wanted, but deciding to ask first. Yeah, okay. Mito replied with a nod of her head. She had already met Inochi through her friendship with his daughter Ino. She trusted him enough to let him use his jutsu on her. Sasuke, however, grunted before nodding. He had had the Yamanaka poking in his mind before. The Hokage had made sure he had his mind examined after the Uchiha massacre. He may not like it, but he knew he didn't really have a choice. Thank you. Minato said as he smiled down at the two. Dad, before we go could I ask? Mito began uncertainly. Is Sakura okay? She was badly injured, Mito, but she will make a full recovery. Minato replied with a slight smile as he saw the relieved look on his daughter's face at the news that her teammate was okay. Unfortunately, she will not be fit for shinobi service for a while. Then what will happen to our team? Mito asked, her eyes wide. Sasuke, also looking worried about what will happen to his shinobi career if the team was to be disbanded. After all, he would never get stronger if he had to go back to the academy to wait for a new team. I have already though about that. Minato replied calmly, not surprised that they would be worried over what would happen to them if Sakura wasn't able to return to the field for at least a year. I have contacted Yugao and asked whether she would take over as your Jonin sensei with her apprentice Urza taking over Sakura's position. So that means me and Urza will be on the same Jonin team. Mito said, a slight grin on her face at this. Yes. Though I am sure she will have her own Jonin test that you must pass before she accepts you. Minato replied. Both Sasuke and Mito groaned at that. Now you two should run along. The sooner you see Inochi, the sooner you can get it over with and relax. Minato replied as he gestured for them to leave. Okay, Dad. Mito replied as she stood up, letting out a tired yawn as she did so. Tell us if you find Kakashi-sensei though, please. Mito, you know. Kushina began uncomfortably. I know. But there is also a chance he is not. Mito said with a strained smile, even as she left the room, Sasuke silently following her out. As the door closed behind them, Minato looked over to Kushina and Jiraiya. Sounds like Kakashi went down fighting. Jiraiya muttered. What a waste. You know the Uchiha was lying, don't you? This whole thing could have been avoided if he kept his head. You can't blame it all on the boy. He made a simple mistake, he didn't mean for any of this to happen. Kushina replied as she frowned at the white-haired sage. He is a shinobi, to make a mistake is to invite death. Jiraiya relied harshly. Will he be sanctioned? Possibly, however, due to his status as the last Uchiha, a number of nobles in the Land of Fire have taken an interest. Having him as a shinobi would be a great asset. Minato replied as he rubbed his face, deeply saddened by the loss of his last student. Now Kakashi had gone to join Obito and Rin in the next life. Maybe. Jiraiya grunted. So what are we going to do about this mess? There is not much we can do. We hold a funeral and move on. Minato replied as he looked out of the window sadly. I meant with this whole situation. Jiraiya replied. What can we do? The skirmish happened in a neutral country. Our shinobi initiated the fight and interfered with the Hunternin's mission. Minato replied as he frowned at Jiraiya. Politically speaking, the Hunternin were justified in protecting themselves, and so we can't claim any compensation. We can't even claim back Kakashi's body as he had a bounty on his head from Kiri. Also, that is not taking into account the possibility that Kakashi killed one of them. But we can create sanctions of our own. You are not just a politician, Minato. You are the leader of a shinobi village. Now I am not suggesting war or even a dissolution of the existing relationship between Kiri and Konoha. But we have to do something, otherwise it will be seen as weakness. Kushina spoke up, voicing her own thought. What about we increase the bounty on the Grimm's head and his teams, make it so high that he and his comrades can never operate missions again due to their fear of being hunted down and killed for his bounty? But it is possible Grimm is dead. Minato replied. Possible, yes, but not certain. His teammates too are also likely alive. Kushina added. Even if they are not, by raising the bounty we will show that we are doing something. That we are not just taking the loss of one of our elites without consequences. Okay, I do like the sound of that. Minato replied as he nodded his head. Irika jumped slightly at that, before he looked over to the Hokage, a shiver going down his spine as he saw the look in his eyes. "Take a message to the Shinobi Administration Office for me. The bounty for the Grim is to be increased to 300,000 Ryo. His ranking is to be increased to S rank and the abilities he showed are to be added to his bio. Also increase his teammates' bounties to 150,000 apiece. Once that is done, make sure it is circulated through the other shinobi villages." Minato said, his voice harsh as he got back at his student's killer the only way he knew how. "Make the order kill on sight." "Yes, Lord Hokage."
That is the end of the video. Comment ramen if you got this far, and I will see you soon.